You may have heard the buzz about the planetary alignment happening in January and February 2025. But what exactly does that mean? Which planets will be visible and how rare is this event? Tonight we are joined by Dr. Eli Kasai, an astrophysicist, to break it all down for us. He'll help us understand the fascinating celestial phenomenon and share tips on how Namibians can best experience it. Good evening and welcome to Dr. Daily Roundup, Doctor.
Good evening. Good evening to the viewers.
Of course, let's start with you telling us the basics. You know, what is this planetary alignment and why is it significant?
So basically, you have the sun, which is the source of life on Earth. Everything that we do depends on the sun. You switch off the sun, life as we know it on Earth and elsewhere within the solar system stops. So basically, the sun has all its planets. Well, there were 9 and Pluto got demoted and now you have 8 planets. So they go around the sun. So you can think of it as, people running around the track. The best way to visualize this is to think of runners on a track. They go around this central point, running within the tracks for a specified number of times. If it's a 100-meter sprint, then they sprint once. But if it's 400, then they go around, once. And if it's, a longer distance, then they go around several times. So now with the planets, they literally go around the sun forever, for as long as, we've lived. So then there comes a point where the outer planets, they move slower compared to the inner planets. So you can think of it as runners, but they're running in circles. Instead of running in those 100-meter distances that they run going around the track, now think of them as if they were running in circles. Now, the inner runners, they run faster compared to the outer runners. So that's exactly what happens. The inner planets, which are Mercury and Venus, they actually go around very fast. And then the Earth is also faster compared to the outer planets like Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and you go on all the way up to Neptune. Okay? So now there occurs a time when the inner planets, they go around once, and then they go around again, the sun, and they overtake the outer planets. So you can think of it as you pass me, or if you're driving in a car and you overtake a car, it seems like the other car is going back. But for a moment, before you overtake it, you all, are driving next to each other. When you're 2 cars and before you overtake the car, you're actually, for a moment, you are next to that car. So there comes a time when they all get aligned. As the inner planets try to overtake the outer planets, there comes a moment where they all come in one line before the inner ones overtake. For that moment, they are all aligned. In other words, if you were to draw a line through one of them, that line will go through all of them. And that happens for a brief period of time. Well, in our case, it happens for a couple of days. And then they are out of alignment again. And then the outer planets carry on going slow and the inner planets go faster again, just to catch up later on with the outer ones again. So that's essentially what happens. And that's the whole story about, planetary alignment, otherwise also known as planetary parade.
That is quite interesting, Doctor. And how often does something like this happen?
Well, you get different kinds of alignment. So you can have an alignment of 3 planets, and that occurs like 2 or 3 times in a year. And then you get what is referred to as a medium alignment, where you have 4 planets aligning, and that occurs for every few years, basically. Now, what we are faced with tonight and later on the 26th of next month is what's called a large alignment, where you have 6 or more planets aligned. That is a rare event, and it happens every 20 years. So we're witnessing something that we're not going to be able to see for another 20 years again. And then you have what's called a grand alignment. Now, that is quite rare because you now have all the 8 planets, from Mercury all the way up to Neptune. They are all in alignment. That happens once in a lifetime, basically. It happens like every 170 years. So the last time that happened was in 1982. So we expect this to happen again in 2492, 2492, basically. So long after we're gone, basically.
That is quite interesting. And I know Namibians have been speaking about this, and for those of us now, in Namibia, will there be anything unusual or special to look out for?
Nothing unusual, really. These are things that these are phenomena that have been happening over millennia. It's really just the physics of how planets move around the sun. There's what's called retrograde motion when, the one planet overtakes the inner one overtakes the outer one would appear like it's going backwards. So that always happens. I mean, they tug on each other gravitationally and so forth, but really the effect, on the Earth and what have you is pretty minimal. And there's nothing special to look out for. That could be in the form of a disaster of some sort or anything like that. None of that.
Indeed. So what's the best way for amateurs, astronomers, or even casual stargazers to observe this event?
Well, right now, today's alignment, the best time to see it is actually now, okay, but the sun hasn't set yet. So elsewhere where the sun has actually set, like, somewhere in the northern hemisphere, the sun is long gone. So the time to see that is actually now. But as soon as the sun has set, for us specifically, the best time I would say will be anywhere around 8:15 to 9 p.m., so be out there and try and look over the horizon. If you look on the horizon, Mars, 20 degrees above the horizon, if you just tilt upwards from the horizon, you should be able to see 3 of the planets that are in alignment. So those will be the ones that you can see tonight, later on, just after the sun sets, will be Mars, Venus, and Saturn. They're going to be not so far from the horizon. Okay, so they will be about 20 degrees above the horizon. The other ones, you will need to consult an app. I recommend everyone to get this free app called Stellarium. Okay. It's free. It can be downloaded on App Store or on Google Store for free. And that tells you, so all you do once you've installed it on your phone, all you do is really just to ask it to tell you where the planets are in the sky. It has east, northeast, west, and south orientation, so it'll tell you exactly where a particular planet will be at what time. So that will be a good app to actually get hold of for anyone that's interested in this kind of thing.
Indeed, I'll definitely download that app. And just, Doctor, some people wonder, can planetary alignment affect things like weather or natural events here on Earth?
Not necessarily, no. Not at all, actually. I mean, the only thing that causes major catastrophe is when the sun is undergoing what's called sunspots. Like there's this 11-year cycle where the sun ejects quite a lot of its own material. It's like it sneezes, if you like. So that's the only time that it really affects, weather patterns, to an extent of actually, if you're not careful, you can get your electrical equipment and electrical transmission lines and things like that damaged. But other than this, things like these alignments and so forth, because we are technically still far away from each other, even though we are aligned. But as planetary worlds, we are still quite far from each other. So it doesn't really result in any adverse, effects in terms of the weather and so forth.
And from a scientific perspective, does this alignment offer any unique opportunities for researchers or astronomers?
Yeah, I mean, we are always, out, investigating, how our solar system actually behaves. There are still things that we do not understand about our own solar system, that being the sun together with its planets and the moons that are within it. So it is quite an opportunity in that it gives us a window to try and investigate certain phenomena. But from a scientific point of view, in terms of, reaching a breakthrough of some sort, not so much. Whatever we're able to study with these alignments, it's quite minimal in terms of answering questions that are unanswered at the moment. Mm-hmm. But it is an interesting phenomena in that, we can study, other physical properties like the way light gets reflected from these planets to us and back, basically because all the planets reflect sunlight. Mm-hmm. When they are all aligned in this way, we could learn a thing or two about the physics of the reflection of light and so forth. But in terms of creating a breakthrough, not so much. Not so much, really. It's quite minimal.
And finally, Dr. Kasai, just for those who want to dive deeper into astronomy, how can the public get involved or learn more about this event?
We actually have quite active outreach programs. Mm-hmm. People can reach us at our offices. We are based at the University of Namibia. We have an astrophysics research group within the University of Namibia, but within that, there's an active outreach program that is actually spearheaded by some of our final year undergrad students and master's students. We have a mobile planetarium that goes around that teaches about the night skies and solar systems and life on other planets and how we can explore space and study stars and galaxies and so forth. So those programs are quite active, but they are more actually dedicated to school children. Mm-hmm. We have an observatory, actually the largest of its kind. It observes in the gamma ray regime of the electromagnetic spectrum. Mm-hmm. That's about 120 kilometers from Windhoek, the road that goes to Walfish Bay, the gravel road. People can always make an appointment, or they can reach us here at the University of Namibia for us to tell them about that. And they can take a drive out there and just get an overview or a tour of what actually happens out there and what sort of things we do out there. But other than that, if the people need dedicated, sessions with us and so forth, we're always happy to welcome them. They can always reach us at our offices. We're based at the main campus at the University of Namibia. And we're happy to chat to people and talk to people. We love to come to the NBC and come and, disseminate information when there's a particular space event or something like that.
Of course.
People can reach us through those channels.
Thank you so much for being on Daily Roundup today, Doctor.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right. That was Dr. Eli Kasai, astrophysicist. He just gave us a brief on the planetary alignment that will happen between January and February. Now, a Zimbabwean-American actress and playwright is fostering the next generation of African storytellers in Zimbabwe through a dramatic arts initiative called Almasi Collaborative Arts. Voice of America with this report.
Global demand for TV shows and movies continue to rise in Zimbabwe.